Hello everyone. Today we're going to work on a technique called shadowing. Shadowing is when you listen to English and repeat what you hear at the same time. It helps you improve your pronunciation, your listening comprehension, and your speaking fluency all at once. As we go through today's story, I encourage you to pause after each sentence and try to repeat it out loud. Don't worry about being perfect. The goal is to practice and improve gradually. Are you ready to discover what happens when trusting the wrong doctor leads to a life-changing decision? Let's dive into the story.
My name is Leah. I am 28 years old, and I work as a nurse in Boston, Massachusetts. For 3 years, I have dedicated my life to helping patients at Massachusetts General Hospital. I thought I could trust the doctors I worked with. I thought the medical system would always protect patients first. I was wrong about everything. It started 6 months ago when I was assigned to work with Dr. Marcus Webb in the oncology department. Dr. Webb was considered brilliant by everyone at the hospital. He had published dozens of medical papers and spoke at conferences worldwide. Patients loved him because he always promised hope, even in the most difficult cases. But something about Dr. Webb made me uncomfortable from the beginning. I live in a small studio apartment near the hospital. I wake up at 5 every morning to prepare for 12-hour shifts. My routine has always been simple and focused. I review patient files, check medication schedules, and prepare everything perfectly before starting work. My parents both died from cancer when I was in college. That is why I became a nurse. I wanted to help families like mine navigate the most frightening moments of their lives. I believed that hospitals were places of healing and honesty. But Dr. Webb was about to shatter that belief completely. During my first week working with him, I noticed something strange about his treatment protocols. He was prescribing experimental drugs to patients without fully explaining the risks. He told families these treatments were standard care, but I had never seen them used before. When I asked Dr. Webb about the medications, he told me they were part of cutting-edge research. He said I would not understand the complex science behind them. He made me feel stupid for asking questions. The patients seemed to trust him completely. Mrs. Rodriguez, a 60-year-old grandmother, called him her miracle doctor. She believed he was going to cure her lung cancer with his special treatment plan. Her daughter brought him flowers every week. But Mrs. Rodriguez was getting worse, not better. I started paying closer attention to Dr. Webb's patient files. I noticed that he was billing insurance companies for treatments that cost thousands of dollars more than standard care. The experimental drugs he prescribed were manufactured by a pharmaceutical company called Nexus Medical. One evening, I stayed late to research Nexus Medical online. What I discovered made my stomach turn. Dr. Webb was listed as a paid consultant for the company. He received money for every patient he enrolled in their experimental drug trials. The patients had no idea they were part of experiments. They thought they were receiving the best possible treatment for their conditions. I realized that Dr. Webb was using desperate patients to make money for himself and the drug company. He was not trying to cure them. He was using them as test subjects without their informed consent. The next morning, I confronted Dr. Webb in his office. I told him I had discovered his financial relationship with Nexus Medical. I demanded that he explain why he was not being honest with patients about the experimental nature of their treatments. Dr. Webb closed his office door and sat behind his desk. His friendly demeanor disappeared completely. He told me I had misunderstood the situation. He said all medical treatments involved some level of risk and experimentation. Then he threatened me. Dr. Webb said that questioning a senior physician could end my nursing career. He reminded me that he had connections throughout the Boston medical community. He said he could make sure I never worked as a nurse again if I caused problems for him. What terrified me most was his casual mention of other nurses who had asked too many questions in the past. He told me that 3 nurses had been transferred to different departments after raising concerns about his practices. One had been fired for allegedly stealing medications she had never touched. I left his office feeling terrified and confused. I had worked so hard to build my career. I could not afford to lose my job. But I also could not continue watching patients suffer because of Dr. Webb's greed. That weekend, I called my best friend Sarah, who works as a medical social worker. I told her everything I had discovered about Dr. Webb and Nexus Medical. Sarah listened carefully and then gave me advice that changed everything. She told me to start documenting everything. She said I needed written evidence of Dr. Webb's unethical practices before I could report him to hospital administration. She also warned me to be very careful because Dr. Webb clearly had powerful allies. Sarah also revealed something that shocked me. She said her hospital had recently fired a social worker for questioning experimental treatments being conducted without proper patient consent. The hospital had claimed she was mentally unstable and incompetent. On Monday morning, I began secretly photographing patient files with my phone. I documented which patients were receiving experimental drugs, how much money was being charged to insurance companies, and what Dr. Webb was telling families about their treatment options. The evidence I gathered was horrifying. Dr. Webb had enrolled over 40 patients in unauthorized drug trials during the past year. Some patients had experienced severe side effects that could have been avoided with standard treatments. Mrs. Rodriguez had suffered kidney damage from the experimental drugs. Her cancer had continued to spread while Dr. Webb insisted his treatment was working. Her family had spent their life savings on medications that were making her sicker. But the most disturbing discovery came when I found records showing that Dr. Webb had been conducting these experiments for over 5 years. Previous nurses had tried to report him, but their complaints had disappeared from hospital files. Some of those nurses had experienced mysterious car accidents or family emergencies that forced them to leave Boston. I realized that Dr. Webb had been systematically silencing anyone who discovered his illegal activities. After 2 weeks of gathering evidence, I made the most difficult decision of my life. I scheduled a meeting with Dr. Patricia Collins, the Chief of Staff at Massachusetts General Hospital. I brought printed copies of everything I had documented about Dr. Webb's practices. Dr. Collins listened to my presentation without interrupting. She examined the evidence carefully and asked detailed questions about my observations. When I finished explaining everything, she thanked me for bringing these concerns to her attention. But then Dr. Collins told me something that shocked me completely. She said the hospital administration was already aware of Dr. Webb's relationship with Nexus Medical. She said they had approved his research activities as part of an ongoing clinical trial program. I realized that the corruption went much deeper than I had imagined. The hospital was allowing Dr. Webb to experiment on patients because they were receiving money from the pharmaceutical company too. Dr. Collins asked me to keep our conversation confidential. She said the hospital would handle the situation internally. She promised that patient safety was their highest priority. But nothing changed. Dr. Webb continued his unethical practices. Patients continued to suffer from unnecessary treatments. The hospital continued to profit from the arrangement with Nexus Medical. What made the situation even more terrifying was discovering that Nexus Medical had similar arrangements with hospitals in 12 other states. Dr. Webb was part of a nationwide network of doctors conducting illegal experiments on cancer patients. 3 weeks later, Mrs. Rodriguez died. Her family believed she had received the best possible care. They never learned that she had been used as an unwilling test subject in Dr. Webb's experiments. At Mrs. Rodriguez's funeral, I made a promise to myself. I would find a way to expose the truth, even if it destroyed my career. I decided to contact investigative journalists at the Boston Globe newspaper. I arranged to meet with a reporter named Jennifer Walsh at a coffee shop near my apartment. I brought copies of all the evidence I had gathered about Dr. Webb and Nexus Medical. Jennifer Walsh was immediately interested in my story. She said the newspaper had been investigating pharmaceutical companies that used unethical research practices. My evidence provided missing pieces to their larger investigation. Over the next month, Jennifer and I worked together to verify my claims. She interviewed former patients and their families. She obtained financial records showing payments from Nexus Medical to Dr. Webb and Massachusetts General Hospital. The Boston Globe published our investigation on a Tuesday morning. The front-page headline read, "Trusted Doctor Used Cancer Patients as Unwitting Test Subjects for Profit." The article included photographs and interviews that exposed the entire conspiracy. The story created a massive scandal. Dr. Webb was suspended from the hospital immediately. The state medical board launched an investigation into his license. Families of his patients filed lawsuits against him and the hospital. But the victory came with a terrible personal cost. The hospital fired me for violating patient confidentiality policies. Other hospitals refused to hire me because they considered me a troublemaker. My nursing career was over. I spent the next 6 months working at a grocery store to pay my rent. I felt proud of exposing the truth, but I also felt devastated about losing the career I loved. Then I received a phone call that changed my perspective completely. The call came from Maria Santos, Mrs. Rodriguez's daughter. She had read the newspaper investigation and finally understood what had really happened to her mother. Maria thanked me for having the courage to speak out. She said her family had been living with guilt, wondering if they had made wrong decisions about her mother's care. Learning the truth about Dr. Webb's experiments had helped them process their grief and anger. Over the following months, I worked with dozens of families who had been deceived by Dr. Webb. I helped them understand their medical records and navigate the legal system. I provided emotional support as they processed their trauma and loss. This work gave me a new sense of purpose. I realized that I could still help patients, even without working in a hospital. I could advocate for victims of medical fraud and help prevent similar crimes from happening to other families. I decided to return to school to earn a degree in medical ethics and patient advocacy. I wanted to develop the legal knowledge and research skills necessary to fight systematic corruption in healthcare. Last month, I started working for a non-profit organization that investigates medical fraud. My experience with Dr. Webb has become the foundation for a new career focused on protecting patients' rights. Dr. Webb eventually lost his medical license and was sentenced to 3 years in prison for fraud. Massachusetts General Hospital paid millions of dollars in fines and settlements. The scandal led to new regulations requiring transparency in medical research. But the most meaningful result of my decision to speak out has been the relationships I have built with other advocates and survivors. We work together to ensure that no other families suffer the way Mrs. Rodriguez's family did. Every morning now, I wake up knowing that my work has real meaning. I am protecting vulnerable patients from predatory doctors. I am honoring Mrs. Rodriguez's memory by fighting for the honesty and compassion that should define medical care. I trusted the wrong doctor, but that mistake taught me to trust my own instincts and moral courage instead. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment and tell me what you thought about Leah's courageous decision to expose medical corruption. Your engagement helps other English learners discover these stories and practice their language skills together with meaningful content.